Winter has a way of exposing how fragile modern comfort really is. One power outage, one failed heater, and suddenly the cold becomes personal. If you're watching Warfield Prepper Chronicles, you're not here for cosy myths or recycled advice. You're here because history solved problems long before electricity, and those solutions still work. Battlefield survival. If you value practical historical knowledge, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment with the coldest night you've ever endured. Now let's get straight to the method. This method centers on bed enclosure rather than blanket thickness. Pre-modern Europeans, especially from the late medieval period through the First World War, understood something modern bedding ignores. Heat escapes upward and sideways long before it escapes downward. Their answer was not heavier blankets, but controlled airspace. The core hack was turning the bed into a microenvironment where warm air stayed trapped around the body all night. This was done by layering from the bottom up and enclosing from the sides inward. Straw mattresses, wool pads, or layered fabric sacks were used beneath the sleeper to block conductive heat loss to cold frames and floors. On top, instead of loose throws, blankets were tucked aggressively along the sides and foot of the bed, sealing the warm air pocket. The goal was not comfort, but containment. You can apply this today by placing a dense insulating layer beneath your mattress, such as folded wool blankets, old duvets, or even cardboard if supplies are limited. Then use fewer blankets on top, but seal them tightly around your body rather than draping them loosely. By the 17th century, enclosed beds were common across cold regions of Europe. Bed curtains, wooden box beds, and later iron frames with heavy drapery were not luxury items. They were thermal technology. These structures reduced air movement, which is, the primary enemy of retained body heat during sleep. In rural homes, box beds were built directly into walls to block drafts. In military camps and World War I barracks, soldiers improvised similar effects, using coats, canvas and spare cloth to block wind around their sleeping area. The principle was consistent: reduce airflow and trap warmth close to the body. Modern application is simple and effective. Hang heavy fabric around the bed using curtain rods, ropes, or even paracord. If that's not possible, just push the bed against a wall and block open sides with thick blankets draped over chairs or furniture. The difference in overnight warmth is immediate, especially in unheated rooms. Before central heating, beds were warmed deliberately before sleep. Hot bricks, stones, or metal bed warmers were placed between blankets to raise the internal temperature of the enclosed space. This wasn't about comfort at bedtime, but about reducing the energy the body had to spend warming the bed once asleep. This method prevented early night heat loss, which is when most people wake up cold. These days, hot water bottles, heated stones wrapped in cloth, or even just warmed clothing tucked under the covers can pretty much achieve the same effect. The trick is to place them near your feet or your core and, if safety's a concern, best to remove any hard objects before you drift off into a deep sleep. Pre-modern bedding, interestingly enough, followed a sort of logic that, honestly, modern bedding marketing tends to ignore. The bottom layer was there to insulate, the middle layer soaked up moisture, and the top layer, well, that one's job was to trap the heat in. Linen sheets, you see, would soak up sweat and keep the insulation nice and dry. Wool blankets, on the other hand, offered heat retention even if they got a bit damp. And then heavy outer coverings would seal the whole system together. You know, many people today stack synthetic blankets without really understanding how moisture management works. Sweat builds up, insulation just fails, and before you know it, the cold sets in. Using breathable natural materials whenever possible, well, it dramatically improves how well you can retain warmth. These days, a practical setup would be something like cotton or linen sheets, then wool, or maybe wool blend blankets, and finally a dense outer cover, like a quilt or a sleeping bag. The thing is, the order of the layers actually matters more than the number of them. Historical records show people slept closer together, curled slightly, and wore nightcaps or head coverings. Heat loss through the head and extremities was well understood. Nightcaps were not fashion, they were survival gear. In modern winter conditions, wearing a thin wool hat or hood to bed can significantly reduce heat loss. Loose wool socks and long-sleeve base layers add warmth without restricting circulation. Avoid tight clothing that compresses insulation. What makes this pre-modern bed hack valuable today is, well, its independence from technology. It works just as well in apartments, rural homes, and even emergency shelters. During winter blackouts, fuel shortages, or when you're living off-grid, this approach can honestly be the difference between restless nights and keeping a stable core temperature. Give it a try on the coldest nights. Measure the difference by how often you wake up and, how warm the bed feels in the morning. The results, well, they speak for themselves. Modern heating, it trains us to heat rooms instead of our bodies. Pre-modern people, though, they did the opposite. They heated the smallest space possible and, well, conserved energy relentlessly. In an age of rising energy costs and unpredictable winters, this knowledge is not just historical trivia. It's honestly applied survival wisdom. If this guide gave you something practical you can use tonight, subscribe to Warfield Prepper Chronicles, like the video, and leave a comment with how you're applying this method in your own winter setup. Share this with someone battling the cold right now. Knowledge only matters when it's passed on.